Well, good morning, everybody. I'm a little sick right now, but getting over it. So today is the day. We are delivering the 1947 Farmall M to the new owner. It's about a 2.5 hour drive, so we're going to deliver it, make sure they're happy with it. Something I typically do is I keep all my receipts for anything that I ever do on these tractors, and we're going to hand that over to them just to show them what's been done on it. And yeah, should be a good day, but bittersweet, so to speak. So we'll get on the road here, we'll get it loaded up, get on the road, and hopefully be there by, I don't know, 11:30 in the morning. So other updates, the 1927 John Deere D, the rear case we picked up from Sandblast, and I cleaned it out, got all the sand out of it and degreased everything just in case there was any excess leftover grease, and did a coat of Gliptol everywhere. So this is pretty much ready to go, other than cleaning the gasket surfaces and chasing the threaded holes. It's pretty much ready to go as far as reassembly. One thing that I did want to look at is this hole here. It has a hex wore around it from the nut. This is where the brake band stud comes through, and that nut wore into the cast. So I was thinking about taking some JB Weld and just kind of lightly smearing it in here, and then I'll just take some sandpaper and sand it smooth just so it's a smooth surface. Otherwise I'll just use a big flat washer and it'll be fine. So maybe put some RTV on the bottom side of it so we don't get water in there. But anyhow, that's where we're at. Let's get the M loaded up and get on the road. You gotta pull that catch. Pull that catch back.
guys, good morning and welcome back. Well, as you can hear, my voice is a little hoarse today. I'm still trying to get over this, whatever illness I have. I don't know what it is, but I feel okay. It's all in here. So anyhow, we found Grandpa's Farmall M. I'm still in shock. After 20 years of looking, I never thought that this day would come. And that's why the 1947 M left the ranch, because we traded our 1947 M for Grandpa's 1940 Farmall M. It does run. I'll do a quick walk around, but I want to give you guys the story of kind of how this happened. So my grandpa got this tractor for free from a neighbor of his. This is back in 87, 86, 87, 88, somewhere in there. He got this tractor for free. It had been sitting underneath a tree that fell down in a storm for a number of years. It knocked the muffler off and locked the motor up with all the water that got into it. So this neighbor of my grandpa told my grandpa, if you can get this thing out of here, you can have it. So my grandpa went to work with a chainsaw, cut all the tree off from around it, and then they drug it home with what I would guess would be the Case SC. So they get it home, my grandpa starts tearing it apart, took the radiator out, took the head off, got the motor unstuck, and put it back together and used it for snow removal for a few years up until he died in 1993. So when he died, shortly before, the rear end had punched a hole through it in the bottom of the casing, which is very common. The axle bearings will fail in these and the rollers will drop out, and then they get underneath the bull gears and they punch a hole through the bottom of the case, and that's what happened with this one. And my uncle, it sat for till probably 96, 97, somewhere in there, 98. And my uncle then took kind of ownership of it, and he had a new rear end put in it, or a replacement rear end put in it, and then he used it for snow removal up on his property, which was adjacent to my grandparents' property, for several years. And then finally had enough of the old stuff and working on this thing, always having problems with it, and then he eventually gave it to a man named Dennis, one of his friends. And he gave it to him on the condition that he could never sell it because it was given to his dad, so he gave it to a friend to be restored. Well, this thing was used for snow removal and it obviously never got restored. And that man, Dennis, eventually had enough of it and gave it to Jeremy and Sylvia. So fast forward over all these years, I would bug my uncle and say, hey, do you think you could give me the number of the guy that has the tractor? So he did, and I'd call him, and I would get, no response or anything like that. So for a while, I just kind of accepted that it was a lost cause, and I gave up for a little bit. And then something ignited the fire underneath me again, so I started doing some looking. I Googled the phone number and found a P.O. box. So I sent a letter to the P.O. box that was apparently registered to Dennis, and it came back undeliverable. So another dead end. A couple years later, or not even, a few months later, I met a friend that's a detective, and I had this phone number, and I said, hey, do you think you could look up this phone number and get me a physical address that I could send this letter to? And she said, absolutely. So she looked up an address, I sent him the letter, and Dennis did receive it, but I never received confirmation that he received it. So then a few months later, I get an email that went to my junk email folder, so I never saw it. I got an email from Jeremy and Sylvia saying, hi, we have your grandpa's tractor, and we would be very willing to work out a trade with you. And since I didn't get the email because it went to my junk folder, they text me a few weeks after they sent the email on my phone, and that's kind of how it happened. You know, we started talking, and I explained the situation and the history of it, and next thing you know, we're working a trade for this thing. So pretty amazing what you can do with, you know, a serial number, some friends, and persistence. So here we are. Persistence paid off. Now I will say this, since you guys saw the video of unloading the tractor, it does run rough. It runs, which is more than I can say for most of the stuff that I ever bring home. It does run, but it runs rough. I pulled the carburetor off of it already. We've got the distributor pulled off of it because I'm going to put a mag on it, even though it had a distributor on it when my grandpa had it. I just want to have a mag because it's easier, you know, for batteries and whatever. Still has the generator on it, but when I was pulling the distributor apart, I noticed that, and Jeremy actually told me this, but he had unhooked the ballast resistor, so it was running 12 volt through a 6-volt coil, which, you know, usually the coils don't last real long when you do that. They burn up pretty quickly, and that thing was hot to the touch. So I pulled it all off, got that done. I pulled the carburetor off. We're going to go through that. The valve cover gasket's leaking terribly, so what I'm probably going to do is pull the hood off and put a new valve cover on it, but we're going to pressure wash this whole thing and degrease it just so we can get a better look at it. What else here? I did notice that this loader, which is the same one, that's why I got this loader for my M, was because I wanted to build the exact same tractor that my grandpa had, because I had pretty much given up on getting this tractor. So it's the same exact loader. It's a farmhand standard loader. I even have the original brochure for these loaders. But this one is in really, really rough shape. It's cracked right here. You can see it's a large crack. It goes all the way down inside there. So the cylinders are leaking terribly. The whole loader, if you look at it, you probably won't be able to see it in the camera, but the whole loader is bent this way. So the round tubes, the upper tubes, they have a kind of a swale to them this way. So at some point, this thing was pretty well used and abused. It's missing the spring for the trip, so it won't latch. This bucket is about in the same shape as my other one here. Maybe a little worse off, but you know, it is what it is. I did have them I sent them new front tires, and they had them put on for me, or Jeremy put them on for me. The only drawback for that is this hub here has 2 broken areas of the casting on the actual hub around this bolt. So it's only being held on basically by 1 bolt. So we got to find a new hub for the front. I did notice it's missing the bracket for the belt pulley engagement lever. The belt pulley, it rotates a little bit, but it's not, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it works. I would assume it does if it's rotating a little bit. Something's going on with the pump. For some reason, when you pull back on it and raise the loader, when you try to push it forward to, you know, be in that dead stop area, it really takes a lot of force. So I'm wondering if there's something wrong with the valve in there. What else? This PTO, so this rear end came off of a later model M. This is not a 1940 rear end, and I know that for a couple reasons. This is an early 1940, and originally I think it would have had the trough rear end. There's a trough that goes here and a different style seat, but maybe not. I'm not sure 100%, but this was built in April 1940, so it could go either way. It's a 5-digit serial number, 13639. I've had that memorized since I was a kid, but yeah, that's it sounds okay, it's quiet, so that's good. But the PTO will not engage and disengage. So I'm worried that this might be locked up, the PTO. We're gonna have to find some of the square tube hitch mount brackets that go around the axle, because this loader frame has a bracket that mounts to the hitch, whereas this loader frame is a shorter, it doesn't have as much of a plate here, and this one just mounts to the axle with clamps, so it doesn't extend all the way over to the hitch. So we're just going to bolt this entire loader onto this tractor, and this loader is going to go for scrap, because it's so far bent and messed up and everything else. It's not worth trying to save. There's a ton of weld on this thing, so it's just going to end up going to the scrap yard, because it's not worth it, especially when I have a perfectly good loader sitting right here. So he did inform me that the shift lever is kind of finicky. The end of it is pretty wore. It's missing the plugs, the expansion plugs that go over here by the sides of the shifter. So we'll have to take this out and take a look at the end of the shift rod or the shift lever, and maybe build it up with some weld and reshape it. Pretty common thing. As you guys heard in the video, the clutch is pretty much gone. There's not much adjustment left in the rod, and it will not, it will barely keep the transmission from spinning to shift it. And it made me cringe every time I had to shift it, because it was just, it was a grind it till you find it situation. So we're gonna need a choke rod. I think Connor's gonna be able to help us out with that. He's got that Parts M that he got from Cody. So the choke rod, I think we've got covered. I think he's got a pair of axle brackets that we can get. But I still need to find a front hub. So yeah, that's kind of the quick walk around of it. The tin, not great shape. I'm guessing my grandpa did this. He cut the fan shroud and then bolted it back together, so that, because he had the radiator and everything out of this. So I think he cut the fan shroud to get it out, and you know, screwed it back together with these little machine screws. So we might end up looking for a different fan shroud. The grill is okay. It was broken here, which is a common thing, and they had screwed it back together with a little support plate behind it. They used a pole barn sheet metal screw to put the emblem back on, so that might be an issue at some point, trying to find a screw or fix that. So who knows, we might just end up looking for a different grill entirely. It had been screwed all the way across here to the I'm not even sure what that is. I think it's just a piece of sheet metal here that somebody used underneath the hood. The hood's all banged in right here. It's in sad shape around the muffler hole, which is a pretty common thing. Pretty banged up here. I know this thing was repainted at one time, because it has the International Harvester McCormick Farmall decals on it. So this was repainted at some point in its past, because the International Harvester logo wasn't available or wasn't around until 1947. So they used the McCormick Deering Farmall labeling up until 1947. And then the decal had the International Harvester logo, still had McCormick Deering on it and Farmall. And then in 1948, it was just International Harvester logo, McCormick Farmall. So just some streamlining of things. They dropped the Deering name. You can still read the farmhand script on here. Pretty cool. Same thing on my other loader. You can still read some of the labeling on it. It's got a lot of moss growing on it. This thing sat parked for at least 15 years. So you can see all the moss that's accumulated on it, on the front, on the side here. It has the early style oil filter on it, the larger canister oil filter. So that's just a quick glimpse at what we got going on with this thing. It's not great, but it runs and it's not the worst. So very, very excited to have this thing home. Oh, this tire has calcium in it and the rim is rotted out around the stem, so not good. Sorry about that. A neighbor came by, saw the new project in the driveway. So here we are though. Grandpa's M finally made it home. You know, a 20-year search, and it's finally reunited with the Case SC. So pretty cool. Wanted to keep this guy's a secret, or this a secret for you guys, and I hope I was able to do that. And we'll see where this ends up. You know, as far as restoration goes, I kind of feel like it should be restored to the same quality of the Case SC and the H, you know. Plus we need a nice shiny red M to match the H too. So there it is. It's home. We did it. We'll talk to you guys later.